Cameras have pretty good automatic modes these days, but you can only unleash the true potential of your photography skills when you break out of it. I'm John Rettinger, ready to guide you through the manual shooting modes of digital cameras. Photography is all about light, and you have three controls over it: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Basically, it's how long a lens stays open, how big the lens opening is, and how sensitive the digital sensor is to light. Let's take a look at how you can get the best exposure control and creative results you want in the semi-automatic modes. Shutter speed determines how long the lens stays open when you take a picture. In shutter priority mode, you decide the duration of the exposure, and the camera adjusts aperture automatically. Shutter speed can range from many seconds down to a tiny fraction of a second. Adjustments here are often used to control action. For example, if you select a really fast shutter speed, you can freeze action with extreme sharpness. But sometimes you don't want the extreme sharpness, so you dial back the shutter speed a little bit to get that motion blur effect that provides some of the context to the action you see. Shutter priority is also often used at the other extreme to set long exposures. Keeping the shutter open for longer durations can create interesting effects. Aperture determines how wide or narrow the lens opening is when the picture is taken. The size is measured by f-stops, where the larger the number, the smaller the lens opening, and the smaller the number, the bigger the opening. In aperture priority mode, you select the size of the lens opening, and the camera adjusts shutter speed automatically. The main reason you want to be able to control aperture is because it determines depth of field. Basically, how much detail is in focus in front of and behind your subjects. A wide aperture, which you get by selecting a low f-stop number, creates a shallow depth of field. This puts attention squarely on the subject because everything else in front and in back is out of focus. Shallow depth of field is a favorite technique for portrait shots, where the background and foreground all fall away. The subject is in sharp focus. A small aperture, which you get by selecting a high f-stop number, creates a big depth of field. This allows areas in front and in back of the subject to be in focus at the same time, creating its own unique look. ISO measures the light sensitivity of the digital sensor. You can adjust this in a few different modes, but in the program mode, you can adjust the ISO while letting the camera aperture and shutter speed adjust automatically. The main reason to want to have ISO control is for low light situations. If an image would be underexposed, you don't have to resort to using a flash. You can crank up the ISO numbers instead. This increases the sensitivity, so you need less light to create the image. However, higher ISO numbers can lead to grainy digital noise in the image. A general rule of photography is to keep ISO numbers as low as you possibly can, because less sensitivity produces deeper, richer images. Your camera's auto mode can take some excellent photos, but armed with the knowledge about shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, you can really go after those creative images you envision. Thanks for checking us out. There's plenty more about digital photography right here on eHow Tech.